Hi friends, today we'll see about a short history of Napoleon Bonaparte. In the pre-modern age, there was a number of revolutions occurred all over the world, especially in Europe. In that, French Revolution is one of the important revolutions led to change in course history of Europe. The French Revolution is entirely against monarchy, and the reason behind the revolution is economic crisis, political unrest, society unstable, etc. About Napoleon. Napoleon I was a French military leader and emperor who conquered much of Europe in the early 19th century, and he was born on the island of Corsica. Napoleon rapidly rose through the ranks of the military during the French Revolution 1789 and 1799. During that time, the German states rich in resources while the Italian states were Gujarat of Europe, and both the areas were bone of contention between Austria and France. Austria taking the advantage of internal affairs of France and dominated both the areas. Napoleon was given assignment to take over both the area from Austria. He not only defeated Austria and he compelled for Treaty of Campo Formio, which took place in 1797. And the important provision of this treaty is Germany rich in coal and which became natural frontier of France. And Napoleon was accepted as the guardian of Italian states. And Netherlands and Luxembourg were also given to France, and both are rich in iron. To satisfy the sentiment and the necessities of Austria, Napoleon gave Venice. This treaty turned Napoleon as a hero of France. He gifted area of resources to the people, and French merchant got accessibility to Italian part, and he brought down pressure of Austria, which was diverted to Eastern Europe, which started enmity between Russia and Austria. In this, the biggest thing was, first time in France, the war expenditure was not taken from the people. It was imposed on defeated states. After Italian expedition, Napoleon goes for Egyptian expedition with own hidden agenda. He defeated the local ruler in the Battle of Abu Bakr. Finally, he was defeated by British Admiral Nelson. But when he returned back to France, people of France only one word with them. That is Napoleon. He organized Saint Cloud Convention with wish of people, and he became first consul of France in the year 1799 for 10 years. And the reforms of Napoleon's first reform he did was peace with Europe. As Napoleon came into the power in 1799, he was clear that France for past 10 years faced acute economic crisis. So the immediate requirement for France is peace for its growth and development. In this situation, he started writing letters to rulers of Europe like George III of England and Leopold of Austria. And these letters, he said what is the utility of war in the era of growth and development. This led to Treaty of Amiens between England and France. By this treaty, Napoleon got accepted as a ruler, and Britain, as a gesture of goodwill, returned French colonies in America and Asia. This trend was followed by other European powers. Napoleon came into power when France was facing acute crisis. In that scenario, he gave hope and expectation to the people. And his immediate priority was food and employment to the people and to revenue to the state. So he opted for superficial economic reform. Example, in primary sector, agriculture reform were promoted, in which the important steps is promotion to irrigation, emphasis on the improvement of fertility of the soil and turning barren lands into productive lands, and liberal attitudes towards farmers in collecting land revenue. And in secondary sector, he neglected industrialization, which is evident when he rejected the proposal of Fulton of steamboats for France. To promote employment, he emphasized on the promotion on public works like construction of canals, roads, etc. In this way, he was successful. He providing food, employment to the people and revenue to the state. But when he neglected basic reform like land reform, industrialization, so French economy was still weak and backward. And then political reform. He made a plebiscite in reforms. Napoleon wanted to be emperor to France, which was impossible for him because he belongs to a common class. The second constitution of France declared France as a republic. In this scenario, he organized a plebiscite in France in which he got 36 lakh vote in support and 1562 opposition. On this ground, respecting the wish of the people, he became the Emperor of France in 1804. And he revised bureaucracy, and bureaucrats were called as perfects. Their appointment, promotions, transfer was in the hand of Napoleon. So they only responsible to Napoleon. In this way, the political reform of Napoleon presented the picture of democracy from outside, but from inside it was based on the principle of autocracy. Educational reform. He established the primary school, secondary school and centers for higher education. And then cultural reforms. Construction of palaces. He started new award Legion of Honor, basically satisfy sentiment of his supporter. And Concord Agreement in 1801 between Napoleon and Pope to solve the dispute between Pope and the state, which were stated with the formation of first constitution. By this agreement, it was said Pope will be nominal religious head of the state and Catholic religion is the religion of majority. But anyways, this agreement has failed to solve the dispute. Neither status of the Pope nor religious was cleared by this agreement. Next thing, Napoleon codified the laws. He codified the criminal procedure, civil procedure code according to on secular lines. The reform of Napoleon has positive elements in it, but then it became victims of contradiction, and the possible reason for it was the contradictory ideology of Napoleon to empower France and by himself. This created frustration among intellectual in people, and this scenario blunder proves critical for him. And fall of Napoleon. The first thing is war with Europe. His superficial economic reform started failing after some time, and has unrest started in France. So he adopted policy of aggression to divert mind of people. He turned war into a national profession because war provided employment and prosperity to people and glory to France. And he fought approximately 40 wars, with important battles were Battle of Austerlitz, in which he defeated the combined army of Austria and Prussia, and Battle of Iena, in which he defeated Prussia and destroyed Holy Roman Empire, which changed the history of Europe, and the Battle of Eylau, in which he defeated combined army of Russia and Austria. After this continuous battle, the Treaty of Tilsit. Through this treaty, Russia turned into Napoleon. This policy of aggression was useful for him in initial phases, but then in long run, it developed the sense of unity among European nations. This proved costly for him during 1813 to 1815. And trouble with Spain. Spain was the ally of Napoleon, but due to his unpragmatic policies, turned Spain into an enemy of Napoleon, finally to such a level that proved to be harm for Napoleon. Whenever Napoleon on expedition to Portugal, he entered into Spanish territories without the permission of Spanish ruler, and this was the pain for Spanish ruler and the people. And when Napoleon came into power, Charles was king of Spain. He was unpopular king who saw people resistance. He left the throne in favor of son Ferdinand, but father and son had a dispute in internal matter. Napoleon took the advantage of it and removed Ferdinand and placed his brother Joseph in his place in Spain. This was blunder done by Napoleon, as he appeared as the conqueror of Spain. In these circumstances, the reforms of Joseph proved critical for Napoleon and France. Joseph as a ruler started land reform, in which he took away the land from feudal lords and gave it to farmers and landless laborers. It was a good step in the interest of common people, but it is backfired on Napoleon because it gave ground of unity. Feudal lords of Spain, they united and raised the slogan of Spanish nationalism. As Spanish people stood up against Napoleon, and Napoleon decided to fight with them in a blunder, because it not only brought down his status in the affluence of king, it was not possible for him to take war expenditure on France. This drained away resources of France and weakened Napoleon. And next blunder is Continental Policy. Here Continental Policy means it was the foreign policy of Napoleon I against the United Kingdom during the Napoleonic Wars. In this blockade, designed by Napoleon to paralyze Great Britain through the destruction of British commerce. Anyway, it was disastrous for Napoleon because it backfired on him. The British blockade of European ports and the scarcity of goods created a rise in Europe nationalism. and unproved blunder for Napoleon, because the weak and backward French economy started suffering because of this policy, and Russia decided to leave it, which stated enmity between Napoleon and Russia. In this situation, war with Russia proved to be the last blunder of Napoleon. War with Russia. By the Treaty of Tilsit, Russia was a friend of Napoleon. When the differences started on the superficial issue of marriage proposal, it increased when Tsar Alexander decided to leave the Continental Policy. It seems to irritate Russia. Napoleon established Grand Darbar in Warsaw. This increased the tension between both the parties, and this tension, Napoleon attacked Russia. Siberia proved to be graveyard of Napoleon army, as 2/3 army was destroyed in Siberia. This was the opportunity for his rivals in Europe. They united and defeated him in the Battle of Leipzig in 1813, and then he taken to Saint Elba with all royal status. Napoleon returns from Elba and returned to France for 100 days, and here he committed the biggest blunder. When he started pleading for peace with Europe, Europe was not in the mood to forgive him, so they once again united and defeated in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, and he taken to St. Helena as a common prisoner, and there he died in 1823. Thank you, friends.